Hello and welcome to the Fashion Shed. My name is Chris. In today's tutorial, I am going to be teaching you how to create the perfect color in Clo3D. First thing we need to do is select an avatar. If you go over to the left hand side and go down to your library, you can select whatever avatar you want. It could be male, female, it doesn't really matter for this garment. Once you've done that, then go to the module section where you can select a shirt that you want. Again, it doesn't really matter, you can pick whatever color you want. This lesson applies to all of the shirt colors within this. Okay, so let's get started. If you go over to the color stand and strengthen that, so you right click and press strengthen, that'll make it nice and sturdy. Okay, next thing we need to do is change the particle distance of the collar stand. As standard it comes in 10, but we need to change that down to 5. If you notice there's like all these bobbly bits, so we need to change that down to 5 and simulate it. There you go, it makes it a little bit smoother. I would recommend for the final one maybe putting it down to 3. Okay, so you'll notice that the fold line on the top goes all the way around, but it's absolutely terrible. So what you need to do is you select it, right click, and you click split. Split that into 4 parts. That gives you 3 different anchor points. Okay, so take this anchor point and move it as close as you can to that bottom corner without actually touching the bottom corner. It has to go right to the edge, and do the same on the other side. I'm also going to smooth these points out because as I moved that down, it created an angle which we don't want. Okay, so now click that line, and what we want to do, we want to create 4 lines in total, so not just one. So you go to offset internal lines and click 3, because we've already got 1, so you need 3 additional ones. Make sure it's going the right direction and take that down to 1mm. Okay, so that gives us 4 very close lines. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to select all the 4 lines, and we need to change the fold angle. Now the fold angle is already 240, which will be pretty close to what we want, but let's keep that at 240 for now, and let's change the fold strength to 30, and we're going to simulate that. As you can see, it has moved it down. It's also moved that front point down, so it's not standing high. It's making that nice smooth curve so that the collar actually sits down. I'm going to strengthen this panel for now, and that moves it down. I think that angle, the 240 is still wrong, but I'm going to address that in a minute. It's pushing it in too far, but we'll address that in a minute. I think the collar's too big in general. So what I'm going to do, if you can see the back, the center back should only just tip over the edge, maybe a few millimeters. It looks like it's going over at least 5 or 10 mil there. So select the outer edge of the collar and go to offset internal line. Change that down to 1 because it was already on 3. So put that down there. Make sure it's going the right direction. And I'm going to change that to 5mm. Right click and cut that panel, and you just delete that. Okay, so that's making it much nicer. Okay, so still this isn't perfect because the collar is still standing away from the collar stand. To address that, you need to select both panels and go over to the property editor and go down to the add thickness collision and change. That's 2.5 at the moment, but change it to 0.5, and that brings it closer in. The collision distance is good, and you shouldn't really touch it in most cases. The reason why you have it is so that if you do animations, the panels don't collide. Okay, so we're going to address this angle here. So select those 4 lines again. think what I want to do is actually I want to do this as it's simulating. So I've clicked simulate, I've selected all 4 lines, and I'm going to click the fold angle down. Okay, so as I clicked it down, it moved, and you can see exactly where it needs to sit. So it's 229. Okay, so let's unstrengthen that for a second, just so you get a bit more of a realistic effect. And that's looking really good for now. Next, we need to address this. This looks awful. What I'm going to do, I'm going to check all the stitch lines. So if I click the stitch tool, you should really only have 1 across here, but for some reason there's 4. There's 2 mini ones, and so I'm just going to do 1 across, and then put 1 across, and then do the same on the other side. Okay, so the button was still attached, so I've unattached the center front collar button. Okay, so these stitch lines are wrong as well. So the top button stand is actually attached to the other side, so it's just sewn. So what we need to do, delete that, and what you need to do is sew the bottom button stand to the left hand side. And once you simulate that, what you'll notice is that the buttons are all attached, and it gives it a much more realistic effect. So it gives you those gaps in between. So the collar just started pulling away. So what you do is you select the collar stand and you change the pressure. And as you change the pressure, it will push it more towards the neck. Okay, so I think I'm going to apply a fabric now. So go down to your library and I'm going to search for Oxford. That could be a few options. Let's just pick this one. Okay, put that into your fabric. All of the different panels have a different fabric, but it's easier just to do it in one fabric. Right, I'm just going to strengthen the center front button stands, so it gives it a bit of stability. And what I want to do now is look at the thickness of the panels. Okay, so all of the panels currently are thickness 1 millimeter. But for the panels that have double layer, collar stand, and the button stand, that would all be at least 2. So change that on the property editor. So add thickness to rendering. So add that to 2, and it makes it look all chunky. Now what you need to do is you need to go up to the curve geometry and change that to a higher number. Right, let's address these points, because on a real shirt, you wouldn't get a shirt collar that pointy. So if you zoom in and use the smooth curve, and you can smooth it maybe 2 millimeters just to get rid of that point. Do that both sides. And that is looking really nice. Let's start with the top stitch. Go to the top stitch panel and create a new, or add a top stitch. I'm just going to go all around the top edge of the top panel for now. Okay, so you might notice that you can't see it. That is because it's on the underside of it. So if that ever happens to you, just click the stitch and then go to the bottom and click back. You can put both if it's a panel that's been seen both sides. Right, change the thread thickness to 80. You don't need to change anything else other than the distance away from the edge. Okay, so that's the 7 millimeter top stitch, and now I need a 2 millimeter, which is the true edge stitch. I'll put that all the way around the collar stand. Okay, that's the distance away from the edge is wrong, so I'm just going to go over to here and change that to 1 down, 1/16. So that's perfect now. Okay. So the 3D effect is a little bit too strong on this, so I'm going to change the thickness down to 1.5 and the intensity, or the thickness, yeah, thickness down to 1.5 and then the intensity down to 50. That looks a lot better. Now I need a 7 millimeter top stitch on the button stand at the front. Okay, so let's look at the buttons. So the standard buttons that you got are a bit rubbish. So I'm going to add a new button. Let's do a 2-hole button. The width is going to be 10 millimeters and the thickness 1 millimeter. I'm going to change the type down to plastic. That looks alright. Change the reflection a little bit. Might be a bit too shiny at 60. Okay, let's change the colour to a more ivory colour rather than just white. Now, what you need to do is, if you select all of the buttons or trims, and what you can do is you can drag that button onto one of them, and it changes them all for you. Okay, next we need to do the buttonholes. So the buttonholes that Clo suggested you use were keyhole buttonholes, which is wrong. You should have just the box shirt collar one. So if you create a new one and apply it here, so just drag it on, and it is huge at the moment. So if you move it into place, select it. So select it and go to angle, make that 90, go up to the buttonhole panel and the property editor, and you have to move that to, or it's saying 23 millimeters at the moment, so if the button is 10 millimeters, you would make it maybe 13 millimeters so you can see the edges. What you need to do now is just copy and paste that on all the buttons on the button stand. So, and then we need to change the one on the collar stand as well. You can use the same buttonhole, you just need to change the angle. That angle there, the connection between the button stand and the collar was 180, so it was kind of creating this forced straight edge. So if you go down, if you click that stitch line and change the angles, it makes this much nicer angle, more realistic. Okay, let's move these stitch lines down so they don't go over the edge. I'm really happy with that so far. I think I'll do a render now, just to see how it looks on the final. Do you know what? I'm not really feeling this pink gingham. I'm going to change this to a blue Oxford, I think. It looks much nicer. Okay, so now we're going to start with the puckering. If you go over to the object browser and click the squiggly line, there's already a default puckering effect in there, so let's just use that for now. Click on the puckering tool on the right hand side, and this will allow you to basically draw around all the edges that you need puckering on. Okay, so let's do the top edge of the collar. Let's do the sides of the button stand. It looks too intense at this point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with all the different settings just to get a bit more of a realistic effect. This isn't a super worn like denim jacket kind of style shirt. You just need enough to show that, you know, these materials have been sewn into. Okay, so I've changed the distance down, so it's just showing enough. Okay, I'm going to put some more on the inside of where the lines are actually stitched. I think that's enough. Okay, let's re-render that. It's looking really nice. Okay, what we're going to do now is put the buttons on the collar, so we can turn this collar into a button down collar. So what you do is go over to your button tab. Let's change the name of this button 3. So let's put center front buttons, and we're going to copy that, and then we'll put the collar button. So the collar buttons need to be smaller. So if the main buttons are 10 millimeters, this needs to be 7 mil. Okay, so let's move these right up till that edge of that stitch. I need to create a different buttonhole as well because it's a smaller button, so you can't just use the existing one. Okay, so apply it there. I'm going to change this. I couldn't actually see it. Okay, select it and change the angle. It has to be about 45 degrees or 41 degrees. But it's basically diagonal on that corner. Let's change the width of that and then copy and paste and put it across. Again, you need to change the angle. Now that is the button down. So what you'll notice is actually, although you've got a button there, it's not actually connected to the body of the shirt. So the easiest way of doing this is going over to the pin tool or tack and tack the collar onto the body. You have to make sure it's directly underneath it. It's quite difficult to gauge where it is. A little bit to the left, and then you can check. Right, so it looks like it's above it. And then this one needs to be changed as well. Okay, so let's simulate that. I think it needs to be pulled up. Yeah, it definitely needs to be pulled up. It's too low down at the moment. Okay, so let's go back to the pin tool and on the body, just move it up just a touch. Let's simulate that. Okay, I think that was too much. Right, I need to move them down again. It's creating too much of a fold or a bend, even when you put the straighten tool on. Okay, let's move these down just a fraction. Let's simulate that. And that is perfect. Okay, let's unstrengthen that. Okay, let's add a label. This is a label that I just found on Google. And what you do, just drag it onto the back yoke. Remember, although this is a shirt and the back yoke would be 2 layers, you don't need to, basically. There's no point in doing 2 layers of a yoke. Okay, let's scale it down to size, move it up to the top. You'll notice that you can't actually see it because I've changed. Yeah, let's put it back to that. Okay. So currently it's on the outside, which is not what we want. So if you click the label and then go to the face and then just put back, and nicely it actually flips it for you as well. There we go. So that is pretty much done. I'm going to play around with the lighting and the render properties, but that is pretty much it. So if you follow that from start to finish, that is how you do a perfect collar. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I've also got a Patreon page where I put basically everything that I create on YouTube. I put it all into a Google Drive and let you guys have it for free. So if you think that you might want any of these files, you can just go on and just download anything that you want, basically. Cheers, bye.